We're gonna do really good. Hello. Okay, so it's finally time for me to share the story about my ankle. As you can tell, I don't have the boot on right now. No, I'm not supposed to be doing that, but I am kind of stubborn. Here goes me trying to, as clearly as possible, explain what happened with how I hurt my ankle and then the aftermath and how it was just a whole situation. Here we go. At the end of our trip, Tamara and I left her grandmother's house and went towards the Alps. We were about 3.5 hours from her grandmother's house, and we were at a place called Berchtesgaden, and one of the biggest touristy things to do there is this lake that's in the middle of these mountains. There's 2 stops and you ride a ferry to like either the first or the second one, like whatever you want to do. Tamara and I went ahead and bought tickets to go to the second one as well. There are like professional hiking trails around this lake. Tamara and I were not doing that, but there are just regular trails that you can follow as well. So that's what Tamara and I were following. Basically, anything that you do here though is at your own risk. So there's nobody around watching, making sure that people are following rules, because there are no rules. While we are walking around, I see across the lake that there are like cows, and you can hear the cowbells and all this stuff, and that made me super excited because animals. So basically these are mountain cows. They do milk them and they have them tagged so they can like keep up with them, but like these are cows that go up in the mountains like when they want to, come down when they want to. They're not like your average pasture cow that you would like see it here in Tennessee. They were definitely bigger, but then they also had horns. But they weren't aggressive or anything, and so you walk over and you follow this trail and you get to where you're walking in the middle of all these cows. They're just taking pictures, and the cows are used to people being over there. Like, they didn't actually pay any attention to us, like they were just moseying around. So I'm minding my own business, and all of a sudden a cow comes like right beside me, right here. I'll put a picture in here so you can see. So this cow is right beside me. It didn't really scare me. I started noticing that he was kind of dipping his head, which is something that animals with horns will do when they're gonna like butt you or something. So he didn't seem intimidated or like aggravated with me at all, but you always assume the worst in these kinds of situations. So I just slowly backed away, and I went to get up on top of a rock that Tamara was already standing on. My thinking behind this was because there were cows literally all around us, and if you scare one of these cows, then like you risk having a stampede, which would have been detrimental, but we definitely didn't want that to happen, obviously. So my thought was, get to higher ground, don't aggravate the cow, everything's fine. There's plenty of room up there. It's not like we were crammed up there like huddled together. Immediately this cow follows me right to the rock. I told Tamara, I was like, don't freak out, let's just slowly get off of the back of the rock and we'll just make our way around and go about our business. As the cow got closer and we were trying to readjust ourselves to like step off of the back of the rock, something happened, and like both of us kind of lost our balance, and I'm not really sure what exactly happened, but somehow I ended up falling off of this rock. I will show you a picture of said rock. You're gonna look at it and you're gonna be like,
Rachel, really? You fell off of a rock that was that tall?
And yes, I did fall off of a rock that is that tall. The thing is that the ground, there was like a divot on the other side, and you're like,
Sure, there was a divot, Rachel, blame it on the divot.
Seriously, there was like a divot, or like the ground receded behind the rock or something, so it was taller on the backhand side of the rock where you can't see it in the picture, but I promise it was there, okay? I fall off and my ankle literally just goes like that. It was excruciating pain, and I like laid on the ground and I looked at the cow and he was just like, Tamara's cracking up because it's understandably funny when people fall. I wasn't crying or anything, but I was definitely in pain. Convinced myself to get up off of the ground, hobble over to the shed and sit down, and It's just like at this point it's already growing. Then Tamara realizes that I was actually hurt, and she was like, you know, are you okay, asking me and everything, and I couldn't talk. I was in so much pain and everything, and she was like, well, go sit on the dock and like put your foot in the cold water. And so I did that for a little bit and like tried to calm down, because like I couldn't breathe and I was just in a lot of pain. When I played volleyball, I would constantly sprain my ankle, literally every other week. So it felt kind of like that, only like 5-10 times worse. And so I knew that it was a worse sprain than what I had ever had before. But in the past, like I've always just walked them off and like they get better and it's no big deal. I knew that we had to get back to our car. I wanted to walk around some more, but at this point, like I knew I wasn't going to be able to just walk around for pleasure. I was going to have to walk to get back to my car. We start slowly making our way back to the car. We had already walked probably like 3/4 of a mile from where the ferry let us off at the dock. So we have to walk all the way back to this dock. And like I said, like there's nobody around to like assist. My foot is just like, it is growing by the second kind of thing, and it's just huge. We get to the dock and I like prop it up while we wait for the ferry. It was probably like a 45-minute ride back to the initial dock where we first got off. So we had a pretty good while to just sit on the boat. Sitting wasn't helping, like it hurt just as much just sitting there as it did like walking on it. The pain was starting to spread in different areas, and it was just, it sucked, honestly, like to put it simply. We finally get back to the main dock and I get off, and at this point it had spread to like my shin area. That's when it like started to get unbearable kind of thing. Then we probably walked like a half a mile back to our car from the main dock. By the time we got to the car, I was all but crawling. But I like pulled myself up in the car, start driving towards our hotel. And it's like 15 minutes away. And while I'm sitting there, I was just in so much pain. And I knew that the next morning I was gonna have to drive for like 2 hours or so, and I was freaking out. I could almost like not even sit there driving. And so I was worried about like, what am I gonna do with my foot while I drive, because I can't even sit here for 15 minutes hardly. And so that's all I could think about. The pain was getting worse. It was awful. Ugh. We get to the hotel. I knew I wasn't going to be able to pull my suitcase around, and so I let Tamara out at the front door to just stand with my suitcase while I pulled the car around and parked it. I go around and I like struggle to get out of my car. It was so bad. And like this guy was watching, and he was just kind of like staring at me, and he could tell there was something like definitely wrong. Walking like holding on to the wall, and there's people eating outside right over here, and they're like all looking at me, and I'm like, I'm like standing at the desk, like leaned over, like, can we please get this over with? Because I was not able to stand on my freaking foot anymore. It was killing me. We get our key and it says floor 1. I was like, oh, thank goodness we don't have to go up the steps. In Germany, floor 1 is not ground floor, it's the next floor. So poor Tamara had to pull my 50-pound suitcase that was packed for 2 weeks up this set of stairs while I'm like pulling myself up the stairs. The whole thing was honestly comedic, like looking back on it. Like I'm like crawling to my room, and we open the door, and I'm like, Tamara, what bed do you want? And she was like, I don't care. And I immediately just flop on the on the closest bed. The way Tamara explained it is, I asked that question, I flop down on the bed, she turns around to go look at the bathroom, and a few minutes later she turns back around and sees me, and I have like sweat like pouring down. I had tears, like the first tears like flowing down my face at this point. I was like as white as the sheet, she said, and all this stuff. And then that's when she knew like it was actually bad, because if you know me, you know that I do not cry. And pain is usually something I can completely suppress and ignore. We were past that point. She was like, I'm gonna go ask like where the nearest doctor is. I hate going to the doctor, cannot stand it. Don't like hospitals. I would much rather just walk on a broken ankle than go to the hospital. Being in a different country, away from my parents, I think I kind of like freaked out a little bit, more than I would have if I were like still in the United States. And so like I called them, and my mom, she was at church at the time, and she answers and she was like, oh, hey, Rach. She's like so excited to talk to me, and there's people around her, and she's like, Rachel's on the phone. She's like, hey, sweetie, how's it going? I'm like, I'm crying and like trying to hide it. And she was like, what's wrong? And I told her, I was like, I think my ankle's broken, like telling her that I'm okay, because I knew that she would be really scared. And so she tells my dad and everything, and I was just asking them basically like, do y'all think I need to go to the hospital? Because I wasn't going to make that decision, honestly. They ended up saying that we should. I mentioned in my travel vlog that Germans take their Sundays very seriously. There were no doctors in the town that we were in that were going to be able to help, and they gave us an address to the nearest hospital, which was like 15 or 20 minutes away. Tamara and I go back downstairs. I basically fall down the stairs. We go out, I pull myself back up into the car onto the first hospital.